Welcome. Here we are, Outlaws to Advocates. Thank you, Easy, again for the intro track. Pretty awesome, man, that we got friends like that. We got a new friend here tonight. I'll introduce myself. George Nolan, one of the hosts here at Outlaws to Advocates. This is my friend.
Yes, sir. Jesse Messer, another one of the coaches here. I love the advocates.
My other friend.
Yeah, Jeremy Shaw in the house.
Awesome, awesome. And then our new friend, man. Who are you?
Jason Tierney.
Jason Tierney, man.
Welcome, brother. Welcome.
We're glad to have you. We were talking about this before, and you were saying you were going to be a boring guest. And I highly doubt that, man, because we got the Outlaws name, right? But we also have advocates.
Sure.
And the main thing, our main message, while it's important to talk about our past, right? It's definitely a part of the message in some aspects. Learning how to be successful and seeing what success looks like is extremely important as well. And from what I hear, you've been crushing life. How long you been sober?
A little over 17 years.
Oh, so you just got started.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hopefully.
Yeah, right.
Same amount of time we've all taken business.
17's a magic number in this podcast, right? It's an actual magic number in this podcast.
Is that a laugh track?
He does this every time, dude. Every time.
Yeah, you got the light up that it says applause.
Yeah. Well, we definitely need the applause sometimes, man, because things get a little weird on here.
Yeah. So I've heard.
So you've listened to some podcasts. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I think you're one of 4 people. So welcome to the team. That's pretty great.
One of our 4 viewers.
17 years sober. Why'd you get sober?
I have no choice. I mean, I drank a ton pretty much every day, every opportunity I could for 20 plus years. Wreaked havoc in every facet of my life, destroyed every relationship that I had, lied, cheated, stole, abused, did it all, and was happy to keep doing it, really. I mean, it was a ton of pain, but I didn't see any other way. That was my destiny.
Yep.
And I was married before, and I was having an affair. My ex-wife found out, kicked me out of the house, changed the locks, and this is, again, almost 18 years ago. We banked with a small credit union where she could just call the credit union and say, take his name off of everything. So all of a sudden I had no access to money. All my friends that, the night before I was buying rounds for, blowing a check, all of a sudden none of those people wanted anything to do with me because I didn't have any money.
Yeah, that's weird.
night.
That never
Go
happens.
figure, yeah. So, I slept in my car drinking for a couple days, and finally I called my ex and I said, can I come home and work through this? And she said, yeah, tonight, we can talk tonight, and this is at whatever, 8 in the morning. And I was like, what am I supposed to do until then? And she said, I don't know, go to an AA meeting. And I thought, you idiot. Like, you just gave me the key, the golden ticket, I'll go to an AA meeting, maybe even a couple, and I had no familiarity with AA.
Right.
Like, I wasn't one of these people who's kind of like in and out or had dabbled with AA, court mandated, none of that stuff. I didn't even know what it was. And I thought, great, yeah, I'll go to an AA meeting, maybe even, for a couple weeks, and I'll placate you, and then go right back to my shenanigans.
Yeah, okay.
Business as usual.
That's a great plan. I think I know a few people with that plan.
I had it all figured out, And that night at 7:30, I went to my first meeting with that plan, and everything in my life changed. In that first meeting, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly where I need to be. And at that very first meeting, the obsession with drinking completely disappeared. Never had a desire to drink again after that. But of course, as you all know, then it was a matter of figuring out how to live. And 17 plus years later, I'm still trying to figure that out every day, and but,
So-
working appropriate,
I just wanna ask a quick question on
Yeah.
that. So you said day one, you took to the program, right?
Yeah.
That was your juice, you found salvation, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but that's where you found your happy place, right?
yeah,
No relapses,
0,
just from day one, moving forward.
0.
Phenomenal, man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Why?
because for the first time, I'm the smartest guy on earth. you know?
Oh, yeah, all four of us are.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're tied. I'm gonna win. We'll play the game of rock, paper,
There
scissors.
we go, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, but for the first time, I surrendered. I completely submitted and went, look at all these people around me from, all different professions, all different walks of life, and they're all seemingly happy. They're all, and I just thought, I want what they have, and I'll do whatever they tell me I need to do to get there. And one of the things that happened for me really early on, actually, was that first week, because I went to at least one meeting a day, every day for the first year. And that first week, so that at this church, they had, I think, 3 meetings a week, maybe 4. But there was a men's meeting, so this first meeting I went to was on a Monday, I think, and they had a men's meeting on Tuesday evenings, closed men's meeting, and I went to that meeting, and I went to that meeting religiously. This is back when I lived in St. Louis, Missouri.
Nice.
So this is back there, and I went to that meeting religiously, and those guys, there were typically there were probably around 15 people in that meeting, but it was the same 12 guys every single week, and it was a step meeting, and those guys, at the least amount of sobriety anybody had in that room was 10 years. Some of these guys had 50 years.
So you were surrounded by pros.
Yeah, and there was really no talk about drinking or war stories. It was just a focus on trying to be the best version of themselves as possible, staying sober, not drinking, so that you can then focus on these other things. And those guys, that meeting changed my life. The energy in that meeting, the positivity, the sobriety, the kinship, the friendship, the brotherhood in that meeting changed my life.
That's awesome.
And I went back. I went to that meeting. I don't know, a year ago maybe. I was in St. Louis.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
went to the meeting, and same guys, and it's a step meeting. So every week you're going through a step, and same guys, and it's like, well, here's Tom on, Tom's gonna tell the same damn story for 15 minutes, like it's the first time he's ever told it. And and I remember after a couple years thinking, gosh, I've heard this story now 8 times. These guys have been coming to this meeting 15 times longer than I have, And you look around the room, and some of these guys, their eyes are glazed and everything. But it was invigorating for me, and even and of course, the meeting after me, every once in a while, we'd all kind of gosh, Tom's telling the story. But then people would say yeah, but I heard it differently this time, or yeah, that gave me an opportunity to practice patience, and all that kind of stuff. That
Perspective.
all those little things stuck with me, and just changed every facet of my life.
That's phenomenal, man.
Yeah, man.
So that got you into sobriety,
Yeah.
right? 17 years later.
Yeah.
What's your life look like now?
You hear this time and again in meetings, but the promises, anything I envisioned, I ever dreamed of, pale in comparison to the reality of my life. I've been married for years to the most incredible human I've ever met. We've got a beautiful home. We've got, all the fears of financial insecurity, all those things that that were my DNA.
Right.
All those things are gone. I've got, financial security and then some. Beautiful home, beautiful wife, beautiful family, great relationships with, friends, with my family. A lot of that damage that I caused has been repaired. And there's so much hope and possibility and opportunity in front of me. And every single day when I wake up, I say a prayer of gratitude, you know? Every time I eat, I do a little gratitude prayer, you know? Every time when I hit the bed, same thing. And it's not like some fingers crossed, I hope things will be better. Like, I don't know how they possibly get any goddamn better, but they do. Every day, all the time. And shit happens. Look, stuff happens all the time still, you know? I mean, of course, it's life.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
People die, you know, car accidents happen, you know, all that stuff happens, right? But now I'm equipped with the tools and the resources and the relationships to be able to move through that stuff. And it's not that everything's gonna be okay, everything is okay.
Right now.
Right this
Yeah.
very moment, everything is fine.
Screw what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
What's going on right now,
Well,
right?
it's all you got.
Absolutely.
Is this, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, what memento mori, you know, I mean, we're all gonna croak, right?
Yep.
I mean, this is all we've got is this moment. It's the only thing we're guaranteed is right this second. So what are you doing? Are you doing what you wanna be doing? If you're not, you're doing something wrong.
We,
you know?
What would you say have been some of your struggles, some of the toughest things to get through since you've been sober? And how did you overcome those early in recovery or whenever you?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost was just all the damage I caused, and you know, with my family, mainly with my family, you know, because with friends, you know, what I found out is, you know, a lot of those people weren't my friends, and it was just kind of like, all right, well, they're gone. But with my family, yeah, I mean, showing them, I mean, not just making amends, but you know, living amends, and coming to a point where I understood that, you know, I can't control how, you know, whether or not they forgive me or how they react to me, you know, and you know, that stuff took time, a lot of time, you know, and there's probably still some residual effects that, you know, maybe I'm not privy to, but you know, that was hard. I think most of us are control freaks and we want to control all the outcomes and, you know, control other people and all that stuff. So letting go of that, you know, and that's still a struggle sometimes, you know. But that was hard. You know, working through financial matters was tough because, you know, I had no financial literacy, and I just, you know, I worked, I sold dope, all of it just to be able to drink, you know? I mean, seriously, I heard on a recent episode you guys were talking about, you know, being bad drug dealers. Well,
Terrible. I was a terrible drug dealer.
I was a great drug dealer. I never got busted for drugs. I sold a lot of drugs, but I literally would just, I mean, if I made $3,000 a day, cool. We're going to the strip club and I'm blowing $3,000 on everybody. If I made $500, okay, well, we're going to the bar and I'm spending $500. I just blew it all on alcohol, you know? Yeah, working through the stuff with my family was really tough. The financial thing, you know, getting some financial literacy. And then the other thing was, you know, really, I just didn't know how to be an adult. I didn't know how to function. And so much that, you know, I mean, you guys know this. I mean, so much of your normal is completely abnormal to the rest of the world.
Oh yeah.
You know?
A gift and a curse.
Yeah. And it is, yeah, it's a strength and a weakness,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah. So kind of understanding that, and you know, when I got my first like sort of grown up job, you know, you hear people talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, I'm looking around at these people in this office space and I'm thinking, you know, and this is again 17 years ago, like tattoos weren't as ubiquitous as they are. So like I would grossly overcompensate for stuff. So it was kind of like a business casual like environment, but I'd wear a suit every day.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't want anybody to know that I had tattoos, because then I would just be this, you know, drunk loser guy, and then they would know that, you know, I'm insecure and
All that shame.
Yeah, all that shame. I carried that around, and
That's a heavy load, man.
yeah, man, yeah, and you know, and you know, well, I'm one of the listeners, so to the other three listeners, we have, to those three, I just want to say,
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, there's, you know, I talked about that desired drink, you know, went away at that first meeting, but the shit still happens, and that shame that you just mentioned, I mean, that was something that, you know, I contended with in different ways over years. And it wasn't until maybe 5 years ago when I left my last job and started my own company that I was, for the first time, like, you know, I kind of hate this like business jargon stuff, but I was my authentic self, you know, that I was like, look, this is who I am, you know, business world, this is who I am, you know, if I'm not for you, cool, you know, but as a result of that, I found, you know, fine, I'm not great for 100%
Recording
of
in
people,
progress.
but for the 20%, you know, there's 20% of people that are like, man, I really like this guy, you know, he's different, and all those things that I was ashamed of ended up being strengths.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry for the long-winded answer to your short question.
No, that's good, brother.
No, I think it's. I think what's really cool is that we have an opportunity to learn and grow from someone like yourself. So when I notice that when you get in those moments, right? What do? Because you go on nature hikes. I mean, you're really in tune with your personal self. Your reset button is probably one of the best that I've witnessed since I've been out of here.
Oh,
Let's get into some of that.
yeah, I mean, you know, I've got the outline of a morning routine. I mean, you know, I think one of the ways I've gotten myself into some, you know, life dissatisfaction over the years has been too much rigidity. I mean, you know, discipline and focus and a program are important, but if you're too rigid and you're not agile, you know, that can lead to just a little crazy. So I've got a morning routine, you know, I journal, I read, walk my dogs in the morning, I've got 3 pugs. And you know, I run a lot, I read a lot, and I've really worked hard.
You've done some marathons and.
Oh yeah. Marathons, ultra marathons, yeah, all that stuff. You know, I have worked really hard to design my life the way that I want it to be. So, for example, I mean, I've got clients, people that I work with that are like, you know, oh gosh, I'm always so busy, I've got too much to do, I wish I could live a life like yours. And it's like, you can, you just have to intentionally schedule your life that way. And so like, for example, on Tuesdays, I like to run a lot, I like to read a lot, I like to write a lot, you know, I'm working on another book. And so Tuesdays are the days that I book all of my calls. So that way I can write with unfettered blocks of time, you know, because it's hard to, you know, you're writing a chapter in a book and to really get deep into it and then go, oh, I've got to take a conference call for 40 minutes or whatever. So the way I've scheduled my life is Tuesday, that's my call day. So I know that on Tuesdays, I'm not gonna get any writing done, you know? All I'm gonna do is business stuff. But then, you know, the rest of the week, I'm able to do those things. So it's really, to answer your question simply, I would say that it's just intentionally designing the life that you want. And so many people, and I used to do this, I want to tell a real quick story if I may. I used to do this where it's like, other people can do that, but I can't. Like that's not for me.
Right.
That's for other people, smarter people, more successful people, people with bigger dicks, whatever. You 3 out there hearing that? You 3 with bigger dicks, not you 3 listeners. So
Poor Jesse, he's like, that's like everybody else.
No, but I worked this job for like 5 years, right? And I worked, you know, 60 hours a week, right? And look, I wasn't digging ditches, it could have been worse, you know, but I worked a ton. and the company was headquartered in Florida. I lived in Arizona, so I was operating on on Florida time. So I'd have conference calls like 5 a.m. and stuff, and anyway, I got to the point where I felt this job was unrewarding. I hated it, and I would bitch about this job every single night. Bitch to my wife, this job, and she would, let me do it, let me vent. And one day she was like, just quit. And I was like, I can't, you don't understand, I run the company, like, they need me, I'm so self-important, And she's like, yeah, well, look, either burn the ships.
I love that expression, man.
Quit and do your own thing, or shut up, or you forfeit the right to complain. And I was like, oh, you don't understand. And then she's like, I remember she just goes, burn the ships or shut up. And then she went to bed. And I'm pacing around like, that fucking bitch. She doesn't understand. I'm so important. She's got a stupid job. And all this stuff. And I thought about it for a little while. And then, I was like, I have to do this. I need to do this because I don't respect myself allowing myself to be treated this way and not changing the situation.
No.
So I scheduled a meeting with the owner down in Florida for a couple weeks later to inform him I was gonna leave, right? And on the way, I went to New Orleans for a week. Just stayed in New Orleans. I like
Stole a brick.
Stole a brick, yeah. Literally a brick, not a brick. Stole a brick from the street, yeah. So, but went down to New Orleans for a week, made an appointment, and I got a huge tattoo of a burning ship on my thigh, right?
Nice.
So then I go down to Florida, sit down at this big conference table with the owner of the company, and I was like, hey man, I gotta talk to you, and informed him I was leaving. And no joke, the guy got teary-eyed, and all the things that I wanted, he offered to me. You can have some equity in the company, we'll give you a big raise, da-da-da-da. And for a nanosecond, I thought, man, that would make life easy, because then I wouldn't have the uncertainty ahead of me.
Yep.
Starting your own company, the deal,
It's
right?
very comfortable to stay average.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I thought about it, again, just a split second. And then I thought, but if I say yes, then I'm gonna have this big fucking stupid tattoo on my leg that won't mean anything. So I just kind of leaned in and I was like, sorry buddy, this is it. And now I got the tattoo and I burned the ships,
Absolutely amazing, man. That burning the ships analogy is great. I do want to acknowledge something. I did have to take off for a second. My friend Kristen, our friend Kristen, started a big recovery movement up in Safford. I actually met her while I was incarcerated because I trained the women that were at Perryville virtually, and so did my buddies. In one of their classes, Kristen and I had a conversation. We became friends after that. And she started a thing called The Light. And she started that over a year ago. It was a goal she set while she was in prison. And today was their year anniversary. And she had a bunch of us that have gone up there to speak for her, jumping on a Zoom call.
Oh.
And I piss poor planned that because I was going to include it in the podcast, and then everything just went to shit because my tech knowledge is trash.
Yeah.
But that's why I stepped away. So I'm sorry I missed some of your stuff. But that burn the ships, man. Congratulations, Kristen, by the way, to 1 year.
Yes,
you guys get a
congrats.
chance. You guys get a
Congrats.
chance to make it up there to Safford to go speak to her reentry group.
Well done.
I blew my engine on the way home, so I'm not taking my car.
Where'd you get that car?
Hey, I got a brand new engine in it, man. That's phenomenal. But yeah, that burn the ship stuff is awesome. Something else you talked about earlier that I wanted to kind of circle back to. You were talking about perspective.
Yeah.
And the being great. And we talked to the guys today. We had a huge win today. Jesse, it was his first time back in a prison, like where he was able to leave the same day. Jeremy and I have a little bit more experience with going into the prisons. It was really a full circle moment. Jeremy and I both changed our lives or started our change on that exact unit that we went to today.
Both served, what was it, 2A investigations for murder?
Yeah, it was just a bad place to be at.
Yeah.
And we went there today and we got to bring hope in there. And I was telling the guys something I talk about often. People say they want to be great. Okay, that's awesome. What did you do great today? Because we talk about being in the moment.
Yeah.
If you're not doing anything great right now, Great's not a destination.
Yeah.
It's now. You have to be doing something great right now.
Yeah.
And it was something we got to say to the guys, and we asked what they were willing to do that was to make that change. And they went around the room, and goal setting's kind of new, right, to this community. So we got the general answers. I'm going to be better. I'm going to have a better
Be a
mind.
better dad.
Yeah, that kind of
Good
stuff.
job.
And we narrowed it down to specific stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because I had the same conversation with a guy about a week ago that was called me struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want you to call me back the next day and tell me what's great. Well, he didn't call me back the next day, which I was like, okay, I kind of leave it on them. He called me today with a list about this long of all the great stuff he's been doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you touched on that,
Yeah.
right? It's easy to be average.
Yep.
Very easy to keep that job where you be comfortable, and at least I know I could pay my rent this month.
Yep.
But I'm kind of scared to dream chase.
Well, and even if somebody can't achieve great, start with being better.
Absolutely.
Work toward great.
Anybody can achieve great.
Yeah.
Do something great. There's nobody on this planet that can't go do something great today.
Yeah.
When you stepped out, he was touching on it. Was just real quick. Ultra marathons. You
Yes.
love to run. It's part of your piece.
Yep.
How many marathons have you done?
I don't know, maybe probably 20 marathons and 20 ultra marathons, something like that.
What does an ultra marathon consist of? What does that look like?
Well, technically, it's anything greater than a marathon. So a marathon is 26.2 miles, so 26.3 miles would be an ultra marathon, but usually it's 50K or above, so 50K is 31 miles. Sometimes there are, 100 miles. I haven't personally done a 100 mile, but there are 100, there's one race that I think is 350 miles. My favorite type of race, they're called timed races. So usually it's like a 24-hour block, and you run in a 1 mile loop for 24 hours. I like those because
That's also called prison.
I was gonna say, yeah. It's what I like about those. I have a tendency to get lost. I've delegated my internal sense of direction. My internal compass, not my moral compass, but my physical compass. I've delegated that to GPS. So when I'm out like on a mountain trail or something, I get lost all the time. So if I run in a circle, I'm gonna get back home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, and anybody that knows me kind of well will tell you, I have the worst sense of direction. I literally every day use a GPS to get from work to home,
Oh, yeah.
and from home to work.
Yeah, wow.
It's terrible.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
What's the furthest you've ever ran?
108 miles in 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. It's stupid.
That's
It's stupid. Yeah, so when COVID hit, a lot of races were canceled because you couldn't have all the people together and all that stuff. But a lot of these ultra marathons, they're kind of more like underground running events in a sense. So it's like 100, 200 people. Sometimes it's in a mountain preserve. Other times it's like on somebody's farm.
Nice.
So when COVID hit, I have a 4Runner truck, a Toyota with a rooftop tent, and my wife is very not just tolerant of my nonsense, she's encouraging of it. So she was like, so anyway, I took this 4Runner and drove around the country for like 3 months, running ultra marathons, living in a tent on top of my truck, and it was a blast, man.
That sounds really cool, except for all the running.
Yeah. I mean, it's that kind of stuff. I mean, whatever floats your boat. I mean, some people literally want to buy a boat,
Yeah.
go fishing like that. Like I know Jeremy fishes.
Yeah.
I have zero interest in fishing, but when you're sober and you're designing the life that you want and you're doing the right things, you can do whatever you want. Like the greatness that you alluded to, George. I mean, you can do anything. Really. We place so many limits on ourselves because, I can't do those things because, I come from a troubled background. I can't do those things because I was a drunk, because, because you were in prison. You can't do any of these things. That's bullshit. Every one of us can do fucking anything.
Yep.
Don't drink or whatever, whatever your thing is. For me, it was drinking. Don't drink. stay sober and do the next right thing, and all this opportunity opens up for you.
Great
It's that fucking simple, man.
It's so fucking easy. I mean, man, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Great message.
No, it's okay, man. You know, we talk about troubled childhoods, and I know that we, you know, you and I have shared some things, but your childhood wasn't so easy, right?
I mean, you know, who says, you know, I mean, look, I mean, my parents, I grew up in St. Louis, and, you know, my parents had me when they were teenagers, you know, working class, blue collar background, you know, woe is me, my parents didn't tell me they loved me enough, you know, they both worked a lot, and so, you know, I hated myself, and, you know, I mean, I remember being, you know, 7, 8 years old, hiding in my closet, like thinking, I wish I was dead, you know, but, look, you know, I wasn't being, you know, molested at church or something like that. You know, now that I'm older and I've got life experience under my belt, I can look at my parents and see it, you know, they were doing the best that they could with what they were equipped with. You know, and you know, they put me in a private school. You know, no, they didn't tell me they loved me. No, they didn't buy me the cool clothes. They did what they could, and you know, I acted like my way of expressing gratitude to them was to, you know, steal from them and call them motherfuckers and, you know, steal their cars and all that stuff. And that was, and you want to talk about crazy, just crazy. And I'm sure everybody's got their own version of this, but so my parents put me in, I went to a Catholic grade school, so, you know, 1st through 8th grade or whatever. And I'm a fairly bright guy. I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm fairly bright. And I got into this, like, esteemed, desirable, private, all boys high school. I didn't want to go. I wanted to skateboard and get a mohawk, you know what I mean? Not hang out with like all these like affluent kids at this all boys school. So I went freshman year, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I basically just badgered my parents until they let me leave and go to this visual and performing arts school.
They love Mohawks there.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And instead of going there, you know, I hung out with all these like punk rock kids and stuff that I knew. But then, you know, I was like, oh man, the Crips are fun too. So I'm just hanging out with dickheads, you know? And that was really, that shift to that school was really where my life started to go left big time. You know, that's when I started drinking at school and,
How old were you at that age when you switched schools?
so like 15, I guess.
So you're trying to tell me that at 15 years old, we're not making the best decisions for our future?
Yeah, right. And
You heard it here first on
Yeah,
Outlaws
yeah,
Advocates.
Yeah. But you know, that was when I started getting in a lot of fights and, you know, carrying guns and, you know, all that stuff, drinking at school, skipping school, you know, getting girls pregnant, paying for abortions, you know, like, I mean, all that stuff. And so when I got sober, I had this guilt, like, my parents worked so hard and sacrificed so much to pay for that school, and I just, you know, acted like an asshole for, you know, 20 something years or whatever afterward, you know, 18 years, whatever. And for probably the first 5 years of my sobriety, like, I was so centered on, I have to fix that, you know, I have to make that okay. And I carried that guilt around constantly. And, you know, when I finally talked to my parents about it, you know, I'm like, well, I'm better off dead, you know, even though I've been sober for years, I'm like, I'm better off dead because, you know, I dropped out of SLU high school. My parents are like, what are you talking about? You know, I mean, like, you know, they don't care, you know?
Didn't even register. Like when my son was born, my parents met me up at the hospital.
Yeah.
Right, and they brought a cooler of beer, and I remember my dad telling me, "Hey, we're gonna hang out in the parking lot. We got some beers and stuff." And I remember I told my parents, I was like, "Well, I'm going with my friends," and I took off and I went to the city. And I just left my parents there, left my son, my kid's mom, wife, I think at the time, everybody there to go to the city to go chase drugs and alcohol. And don't get me wrong, I've made a whole slew of bad decisions in my past, but that was something that really sat on my heart.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even go have a beer with my parents, and this is when I was drinking and all that other stuff, right? But definitely don't go have a beer with my parents now, either way. But I didn't give them that little bit of attention when I gave them their first grandson, and it's something that sat with me,
Yeah.
and that shame. I didn't want to talk about it, but I'm in recovery,
Scar,
and
yeah.
and when I finally said something to my parents, they literally didn't even remember it,
Yeah.
right? But the fact that I was able to say that while they were still here and
Yeah.
make that peace and have that tough conversation,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily always for the other person, right? It can heal us as well.
Undoubtedly. And, you know, and your point about them still being here, you know, again, to the three of you that are listening, I'm not gonna let that go. Well, we're gonna get this up to like 5 to 6 after this episode.
We might break 7.
Yeah. We might not.
You never know. Either
But-
way, we're going to be good.
Yeah. But, you know, make those amends now. Just let the bullshit go. Because when I mean, my best friend, he croaked, well, several of my friends died at 29. So when I hit 30, I was like, I'm probably gonna live to be 100. Yeah, he passed at 29. We were best friends since high school, and I don't even really know what it was about anymore. We had some kind of schism over, you know, something stupid, which we had, you know, off and on. When you know somebody that long, you know, that
Yeah.
happens, right? But we had some kind of friction. We weren't talking at the time, and I was telling people, I was seeing him to kick his fucking ass, and you know, all that stuff, whatever. And then he died. He had a brain aneurysm. He just croaked. And, you know, that was where our relationship was. Now, I don't carry that with me anymore, but, you know, for a long time, it's like, man, you know, how many opportunities did I miss to hang out with that guy? And just enjoy, you know, him, my friend, over bullshit, you know, over something. I mean, I couldn't even tell you, like I said now. So, you know, whatever it is, make the amend, talk to the person, just do it. Just do it. You're not that fucking important. You
No,
know?
yeah.
Let it go.
Speaking of carrying, right? You carry 3 books in here tonight.
I did.
Yeah.
I'm carrying.
Break that down for us, man. What was it like to start a book? What was it like to, what is this book, and how do we,
Yeah, so that is the book, Transform Dental Sleep. And it is a book that, really what it is that it's a personal development book for dentists. It's, while it's for dentists, it's really for everyone, but as a first-time author, who's, you know, a virtual no one in the literary world, writing.
You can't be no one and be on Outlaws to Advocates.
All right.
Impossible.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Perfect.
Gotta be
There
someone.
you go.
I am someone. You heard it here.
I've never seen anybody's.
My name's Jason Tierney, and I am someone.
At least for the 4 people listening.
Yeah.
And I've never seen somebody's living room look like a library.
Yeah. I do have a lot of books. I like to read a lot. Well, so with this book, you know, I wrote it because I work in the dental field, and I got to know dentists really well, and I knew I knew how to help some dentists, and I had helped a lot of dentists, but you know, it's one-on-one, and to be able to scale, you know, sort of that advice via a book, which I love reading, I love writing. That's why I wrote the book. But really, because I'm you know, a veritable no one in the literary world, thought, well, if I write this book, because this is advice, this is guidance that would be beneficial for anyone, especially a newer business owner. But if I wrote that book just for the broad audience, nobody's going to read it. But you know, the riches are in the niches. So I wrote it for dentists, and it was an Amazon bestseller for 16 weeks, and it gave me the opportunity. It gave me a lot of opportunities to.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations,
Thanks,
man.
man.
That's
Thank you.
huge. You just kind of passed by the Amazon bestseller stuff. Good for you.
But you know, what it did is it opened a lot of doors for me to be able to do other things, to write another book, which Friday, so we're recording this on Wednesday. In 2 days, I have to submit the final manuscript for my next book, which has nothing to do with dentistry. Yeah, it's so what was it like? Writing a book was the hardest thing I've ever done, you know? I mean, run 108 miles, I've gotten sober. Writing a book was the hardest thing because you're creating something from nothing.
Yep.
And I don't know if you guys have read the book, The War of Art, not The Art of War by Sun Tzu, but The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. If you haven't, and I would encourage everybody that's listening right now to buy that book. Super easy read. You know, some pages have like 30 words on it. You know, you can read the whole thing in an afternoon, or you can pick it up and open it anywhere and read a page. But the book centers on what the author refers to as the resistance and how to counter the resistance.
You're even getting comments on here. You said you are someone, bro.
But thank you, my man.
Good job, Nate Shepard.
Appreciate you, Nate.
Yeah.
Thanks for the validation. That's all we want, is
That's
validation,
it.
right?
Yeah.
No, but seriously, I'm completely serious right now. I do want to get this out. Everybody out there, buy the book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
And Transform Dental Sleep.
Well, but the Stephen Pressfield book, it will help you. I mean, buy the blue book and then the big book, and then buy Stephen Pressfield's book. It will change. So many of us, we've got all these great ideas. You talked about going from good to great, right? You know, from something to nothing, nothing to something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We got you. We're
But,
there.
Yeah. But that book nudges you, pushes you, gives you the kick in the ass that you need every day to go out and make shit happen, to eliminate excuses. You know, the core tenet of the book is, you know, we all have this resistance that pops up in our lives when
Yep.
we're gonna do something hard, something that's meaningful, that's impactful, whether that's writing a book, starting a new program, starting a new podcast. You know, I'm sure you're like looking at that computer going, I should probably do that tomorrow because I gotta go fill up my gas tank.
This thing sat on my table, was over there,
Yeah,
and it sat on that table
sure,
for 2 months before I even opened the box,
right,
because I was just like, I'm never gonna be able to figure it out. All that self-talk,
right.
right?
That book would have gotten you to open that up 2 months ago.
Nice.
Doesn't matter now. Here we are.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
open, thank God. But check out that book.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
So Jeremy talked to me a little bit before the podcast. He said you have, 'cause we're talking about books. He said you had a mentor, Ryan Holiday.
Yeah. So I mean, I've met Ryan Holiday. I've booked him for a speaking engagement. I've read all of his books.
Yeah, I'm
you
a
know,
huge fan of him.
Yeah, yeah.
He is phenomenal. I got the Daily Stoic over there.
Yeah.
Obstacle is the Way is kind of the book that showed me like this stuff's supposed to happen,
Yeah.
right? That's what shows you what direction, whether you're going through it or around it.
Yeah.
That book that's my library, by the way. I think there's 6 over there.
Yeah. I've referenced the Obstacles Away, Ryan Holiday, in this book as well.
Yeah,
From Don't Sleep.
That's a great book. And you're talking about getting some sober, and then it being the hardest thing in your life. I mean, and then the book being the hardest thing in your life. That's a testament to how hard writing a book is. Because getting sober is fucking nuts, right?
Yeah, it is. I couldn't write a book without being sober, though.
Absolutely.
So, and you know, I told my wife, you know, my wife didn't, you know, doesn't have any substance abuse issues. It's all kind of foreign to her. There's nobody in her like immediate sphere that has those issues.
Good for her.
Yeah, right.
Good for her.
So, you know, here I come and it's like, you know, I've been sober for years when we met. But, you know, I told her very early on, you know, sobriety is the most important thing in my life.
Yep.
Nothing in my life that's good is possible without it. So I told her, you know, like, you will always come second to that. And she didn't quite get, she's like, okay, sure, you know, sounds good.
Whatever, weirdo.
Exactly. Yeah, but over time, she not only understood that, but was incredibly supportive of that.
Yep.
And that's just one more way in which I'm crazy blessed because I know people that, you know, are involved in the program and their spouses are like, you know, why do you have to go to the fucking meetings all the time? You know, we've got a christening to go to or whatever. And they're like, I can't miss this step meeting, you know? And it causes some friction in the relationships. Fortunately, I mean, in a past relationship, I had that. But I haven't had that in years, and I'm incredibly grateful for that.
I got a question for you, brother.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's more difficult getting sober or staying sober?
Yes.
Yes and yes?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, like I said, I was crazy blessed with that first meeting, and you know that
Yep.
spiritual awakening.
That's
I had.
incredible.
I mean, truly, staying sober. I mean, again, in over 17 years, I've never thought about drinking one time. And to anybody that's listening, or to you guys, I mean, look, I've listened to some of your episodes, and I hear this stuff about, you know, people got gangrene and they're sleeping in frozen houses, you know, shooting heroin in their eyeballs or whatever.
That's a Tuesday.
Yeah. like I didn't do any of that. You know, I drank, and I would get a paycheck for $1,500 and take all my friends out and wake up the next morning in a bus depot, you know, 2 towns away, and like have with $3 in my pocket, not know how the fuck I got there. You know.
If somebody was listening right now, not to interrupt you, somebody's
Yeah.
listening right now, and they may be wanting to stop getting high or stop drinking, and they just don't know what to do, what advice would you give them on how to start?
Go to a meeting.
Go to
Go to a meeting and just be open. You don't know everything, man. If you did, I mean, you know, I mean, that's what got you here, right? I mean, go to a meeting and just be open. You know, I mean, if you're not at your bottom, cool. Keep going out there. Keep getting funked up. You know, you'll find your bottom. You know, whether that's in a casket and you know in a jail cell. You know, hopefully it's none of those. But I've been fortunate to see a couple of my friends from way back in the day that I used to run around and get in bullshit with, to see a couple of them get sober. I just had a bunch of friends in from St. Louis the last week, and one of them's been sober for 14 years now. And it's funny, he's the guy that tattoos me a lot. And we used to get fist fights and all that shit, you know, back in the day, bar fights and all that stuff. And, you know, I remember about 3 years sober, you know, a couple years sober, whatever, every time he tattooed me, he would talk to me about being in a fucking biker gang, and he would talk to me about how cool that was, and I'm just thinking, you know, by this time, I'm just like, that's all fucking dumb. Like, I go like, hey man, you know, you wanna go to Denny's after this? And he'd be like, oh, it's, I don't know the terminology, it's like, oh, it's a hangout night or whatever, and it's like, dude, we've been friends for 15 years, and you can't hang out with me because you have to go hang out with a bunch of dudes at the clubhouse that you've known for 6 months? So it's
Yeah.
like, you're a fucking weirdo. He would always ask me questions, like he's tattooing me, he's asking me all these questions about sobriety. And you know, I'm not gonna proselytize, so I'm just, you know, sharing my experience. But every time I go back for the next sittings, so those meetings, I mean, it sounds stupid, like you just talk about stuff, and he'd always ask me about this, and I was like, dude, finally I was like, just go to one, you know, I don't know. And then, you know, here we are 14 years later, he's sober, he runs meetings, you know, and it's seeing
Awesome.
that kind of stuff.
So awesome. I love that entrance to recovery too. Like,
Yeah.
you're so gay. So what do you guys do over there?
Yeah, right. And then, you know, even in dentistry, you know, in my professional life, I've been, so I talk with people sometimes that are like, you know, I think I might have a problem, but, you know, I go to these conferences and you're expected to drink and I don't know how to like address that. I tell people, and I've been doing this as long as I've been sober, you know, somebody goes, oh, you want a beer? And I'm like, no, I'm a raging alcoholic. Like, if I have a beer, I'm gonna fuck this place up.
Yeah.
And then that just deads the conversation, like,
Yeah.
you know, about that, right? There's no pressure. So I've become kind of known as like, you know, everybody knows that I'm sober. So over the years, I've had, you know, people in my professional life reach out to me and they're like, you know, I think I might have a problem. And it's a little tougher for them because, you know, here these people are making well into 6 figures, some of them 7 figures, you know, and their bottom isn't like, you know, like ours, right?
Right.
It's, you know, I lied to my husband and said I was going to be home at 10 and came home at, you know, midnight. And my I think my kids saw me drunk, like
Yeah.
shit like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, you don't have a problem with that, you know. But it's like,
It's still a
yeah,
bottom for somebody.
Yeah, yeah. So
Absolutely.
I'm like, go to a meeting. That's all I can tell you. That was my experience. Go to a meeting, be open. And some of those people have been sober for years now, and to see it, it's just so beautiful because you see these people. I mean, shit. I used to weigh 100 pounds more than I do now. When I got sober, like all of a sudden, not drinking, all those empty calories, not eating Jack in the Box at 4:30 in the morning, not sitting around at a bar and being sedentary. Like I lost a ton of weight. So seeing some of these other people like get physically active, start playing sports. Have healthier relationships, seeing their careers flourish. Like, man, it's so fucking rewarding, and it's all because of sobriety.
Yeah, and doing the next right thing.
That's it, man.
That's
Like you said earlier, it's so fucking easy.
It is.
So fucking simple.
My buddy Boo called me the other day. He's like, man, isn't life amazing? Like when I first got out, I went over their house and we were talking, and his wife Colby was just like, dude, all this, and she wasn't bragging. She was just like, all this stuff, you can have it. All you have to do is just stay sober. And I walk out and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm living in a sober living home. I got a car my buddy gave me. Like, I got 4 pairs of socks.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then every bit of that's been true. The
Yeah.
staying sober part, extremely important. The most important part. But then adding that next right thing to it, being there when your buddies call, treating people with respect, honor, practicing actual integrity. The world gets out of your fucking way.
Yeah.
And then it just starts handing you shit.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely insane. And to see you, 17 years, no relapse, had that spiritual awakening, because a lot of people say relapse is part of recovery.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's a part of a lot of people's recovery.
Yeah.
It's not a part of mine.
Yeah.
I never got sober until I got sober.
Yeah.
I stopped using drugs for a little while, but it wasn't a big deal. I still drank every weekend.
Your plan to quit doing drugs.
This is why I meet people where they're at. This is literally why. It's hard as fuck sometimes because I'm like, there's no way that's going to work. But when I first got sober, it was in prison. I stopped putting my hand in the air for all the bullshit that was going on. And I was like, I'm just going to do drugs less. And that worked for me.
Mhm.
I did drugs less. I got UA'd. I did drugs one last time in September or August of 2019. I immediately got UA'd the next day. So my remedy to that was to go rinse out a sriracha bottle, get all the hot spicy stuff out of there, fill it with water, shoot water into my dick so that I could put it in a cup when I had to go UA. I go down there, the cop doesn't even care. I just fill it with water and leave. And I'm like, dude, I will never be in this fucking position. I'd been sober and clear-minded long enough. I'm like, I will never be in this position again. And that was the last time I got high.
Yeah.
I didn't participate in a program in prison because I didn't like the people that were in it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm not going in that room. Those
Yeah.
dudes sell dope. They do this, they do that. And they go in there and talk about 12. I'm not listening. You're not going to be my fucking sponsor.
Yeah.
And now I got out and I'm around these dudes.
Yeah.
And the program's still, like, for me personally,
Yeah.
it's not a huge part of my recovery.
Uh-huh.
But I go to meetings with these guys.
Yeah.
Not all the time. I don't go as often as they think I should, probably.
Right.
But I still participate. I see the results.
Yeah.
The result, 3 out of 4 people here, it saved their fucking life. Well,
look,
actually,
though,
out of
check it though, man. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that, and thanks for fucking shooting water in your dick.
that sucks, man.
Yeah. Oh, I believe you.
That sucks.
But I went to meetings religiously for that first maybe 3 years, and full candor, I don't go with that frequency, anything close to that frequency anymore. And I'm a little reluctant. Look, man, I'm a little reluctant to share this here on this platform, but I'm going to be candid with you. I don't, and I don't want to. Not because, and look, man, Jeremy told you what my morning routine looks like. I do a lot of things to stay sober, to stay sane, to stay productive, to stay happy, to have a life of meaning. And I got to a point where I would sit in the rooms and I felt like oftentimes they were bringing me down. And that wasn't the case at those meetings that I was telling you about earlier, the men's meeting, the step meeting, all those things. But when I moved out here especially, I'd run in these rooms and see a lot of, what I felt was kind of shitty sobriety, you know? It's like, a lot of people talking about how much they wish they could go use and go get fucked up, and it's like, you know, everybody's got a burning desire every meeting, and I'm like, man, this isn't good, you know? And I would try to see the positive, feel the positive, be open. And it's like, man, this isn't good. You know, I can be at home journaling. I can be talking to Jeremy. You know, I can be reading a book. You know, all these other positive.
Doing a podcast.
Doing a podcast. So there's all these other things. So you know, kind of to your point, George, is you know, for me, I worked the program hardcore, and I've gone through the steps a few times, right?
Yep.
I mean, I worked it hardcore, especially initially, and I carry those tenets with me in everything I do. But now, I don't go to 7 meetings a week and, you know, have 3 sponsors and 12 sponsees, and, you know, I don't, you know.
Are you happy?
Man, that's
Sure.
an understatement.
Is your life great?
Understatement.
Awesome, man.
Understatement.
We're getting into our last couple of minutes here.
Yeah.
What's something you want to leave everybody with?
Man, I said it earlier, but really, you can do anything. And I want to tell a quick story. I want to leave you with this. I refer to this as my flat tire theory. All right? So, when I moved to Arizona almost 10 years ago, you know, I left St. Louis and my family back there. You know, I left a lot of the havoc back there. And I moved here, and life was good, you know? And I felt some shame, some guilt, because I felt like, who am I to thrive and be happy while my family's contending with all, you know, their internal bullshit back there still. It didn't have anything to do with me, just, you know, they got all their strife. And so I was on my way, I was gonna buy a piece of artwork. And it's like, who am I to buy a piece of artwork? I'm Jason, I'm a fucking loser. I can't buy a piece of artwork. But, you know, I'm going to buy this piece of artwork, and I'm driving along, I'm having this internal dialogue. It's like, I'd probably be better off dead. Now, I've been sober for years at this time, but I'm a human, you know? And I'm contending with this, and I'm driving, and who am I to do this? And all of a sudden it hits me. I was on the 51. All of a sudden it hits me. I have a flat tire, right? So I pull over, I call AAA, and they're like, sir, you don't have AAA. I'm like, what do you mean I don't have AAA? Well, like my card had expired or whatever, the one they had on file, so I don't have AAA anymore. I've never used AAA, I've just been paying for it for years. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll give you a new credit card. They said, it doesn't work that way, you know? Well, guess what, man? I've literally never changed the tire in my life. I don't know how to do it. So I pull out the little manual, and I'm looking at this shit, and I'm just not a very handy dude.
Sam?
So I'm like looking at this, like, I don't know how to fucking work a car jack. So I'm on YouTube, I'm looking at the booklet, I'm changing the tire. Now I'm kind of proud of myself that I've done this, but I'm looking at this donut, you know, tire on the front, and I'm thinking, now I've got to go, you know, deal with getting a new tire and, you know, paying for that and all this stuff. And I thought, God, what I wouldn't give to have my life where it was 20 minutes ago before I had a flat tire, back when life was perfect, you know? And it's like, man, at any moment, you know, kind of like we were talking about earlier, all we have is this moment. At any moment, you know, whatever you're going through, okay, now pretend your mom got cancer, you know? Pretend, you know, you just got pulled over, whatever the fuck. Like, it could be so much worse.
Absolutely.
So where you're at right now, this moment is perfect. It's exactly as it should be. And if it isn't, fucking change it, because you have the agency, you have the autonomy. You know, if you're out here right now, right, listening to this, you have the freedom, the agency, the autonomy to be whoever you want to be. You just got to be it. And don't necessarily dream up these grand schemes. Like, you can do that, but it takes one step at a time.
Start.
Act right now.
Absolutely.
And then act again.
You're speaking my
and
language.
again, and just keep fucking doing it, and all that stuff compounds.
Absolutely.
And it works in, you know, the inverse of that is true too, right? You know, you cheat on your diet, you have a sip of beer, you know, whatever, you smoke a joint, whatever the fuck, you know, all that shit compounds
No.
too. So why not compound the positive and just keep doing it again and again and again and again, and all of a sudden you've created this beautiful life.
There's living proof of that if you watch Outlaws Advocates episode 1 through now. Every single one got a little bit better.
Yeah.
If you just talk about the tech, you talk about the scenery, there's pictures on the wall. We broadcast through a computer, we got better sound. It used to be off my iPhone all the way to fuck over there, no one could hear us.
Yeah.
But you literally speak my language because we can talk about, hey, let's do this, or I'm going to do that. Do it. Take action. Do it. Even if you fuck it up.
Yeah.
Who cares? You learn something.
You will learn from it.
Absolutely.
And you will iterate.
I love it.
And you'll continually get better.
Absolutely. Iterate's a great word, man.
Yeah.
Great word. Thank you
Definitely
so
one of my favorites so far.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you for
Appreciate y'all.
bringing the hope, bringing the success.
Amazing message.
Lying to us about being a boring guest. You know?
No,
But
seriously, I want to say to you guys, I mean, I
Fire.
appreciate what you guys are doing. You know, the inspiration, the hope that you're providing your listeners. And I mean, you know, if you told me that, oh shit, I forgot to hit record, right? And nobody else heard this, us sitting here with you dudes having this conversation helps. I mean, certainly it helps me.
absolutely.
You know, that we're all here together sharing a moment of, you know, kinship is the most important thing in the world to me right now. You know what I mean? Thank you.
I'd really like to share something too, because before you guys got out, I relied heavily on anything that I got stuck on, and he would always flip it on me and say, do you know how much you've accomplished since you've been out? Do you know how hard it is for you to come out of what you did and be where you're at right now? He would always remind me of that.
Absolutely.
And he's always been in my corner since I've been out, and I appreciate it. Wrong, right, or indifferent, has always been very supportive, very positive.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you. Thanks for bringing some books for us to read.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your journey with your new book. We're excited to hear what that is. I'm assuming you didn't talk about it because you can't right now.
Yeah.
So I picked up on that.
Just stay. Check out jasontierney.net to stay apprised of what's happening there.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jason, for being
Thanks,
here.
y'all.
Great message, brother. Great message.
Bye, everybody.